seems like it doesn't matter if it's on a road course, on a speedway, on a super speedway, on a short track. HMS finds a way to dominate the NASCAR Cup Series. Welcome to another episode of MDK Racing Victory Stop as we review what took place on the 16th race of the 2021 Cup Series schedule, the Toyota Save Mart 350 from Sonoma. And in a surprising twist, it was actually one of the better Sonoma races, especially with the Gen 6 car. I was actually kind of surprised. Now, stage one, nothing happened really, and I think the main reason for stage one for it being so calm was mainly because of the fact that they haven't run at this track in 2 years. The last time they participated at Sonoma was back in 2019, and that was at the high downforce track. So you had a lot of drivers, especially some of the drivers like Briscoe, Reddick, Christopher Bell, were all seeing Sonoma for the very first time. So probably stage number one was just the crew, teams, and the drivers just getting their feet wet with this track. But you could tell already from just a few laps into stage one, you knew who the race contenders were going to be right off the bat. So you had Larson and Elliott. They started on the front row. Martin Truex Jr., on the other hand, he started back in the 19th spot after finishing poorly in last Sunday's Coke 600. He started 19th and moved his way all the way up inside the top 6 position by maybe lap 12 or so. I mean, he moved his way up the field extremely quickly. And by the end of stage one, you had Larson winning, Elliott in second, Kyle Busch third, Truex in fourth, fifth, Alex Bowman, sixth is Austin Dillon, his teammate Tyler Reddick in seventh, Kurt Busch eighth, Matt DiBenedetto ninth, and Eric Jones in 10th. So yeah, you knew very quickly, especially those three in the top four, Elliott, Larson, and Truex. I mean, we know Elliott, the king of the road courses, Larson, the dominating driver of 2021, and Martin Truex Jr., who has been the greatest, or not the greatest, but I should say the best at Sonoma in recent years. All three of them were, you could tell right off the bat, they're going to be very strong contenders. Now, stage two saw different leaders up front because drivers like Larson and Elliott, since they stayed out and won the stage, they would restart stage number two mid-pack. And then you had Kurt Busch and Matt DiBenedetto, who pitted right before 2 laps to go in stage number one. They would end up starting out in front in stage two. Now, they actually pitted on lap 10, which was around the competition caution. Later on, the guys with fresher tires, Larson, Truex, and Elliott, they would then start to take over near the end of stage number two. Larson up to second, Truex up to third, and Elliott up to fifth. William Byron also had a moment. He pitted on lap 18 and would end up taking the lead from Kurt Busch on lap number 28. Then with 10 laps to go, the first real caution would come out. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. cuts a tire and hits the wall. The same spot, I believe, where Casey Kane had that huge hit at this very track back in 2017 to bring out, like I said, the very first real caution of the race. Now, kind of similar to what we saw in stage number one, where we would see a lot of drivers pit right before 2 or 3 laps to go. One of them was Martin Truex Jr. Kyle Larson and his team focused more on stage points. They would end up winning the stage. A lot of drivers would pit to set up for the third and final stage. Logano in second, Bowman third, Kurt Busch fourth, Chase Elliott in fifth, Byron sixth, Kyle Busch in seventh, and you had Keselowski, Denny Hamlin, and his teammate Christopher Bell round out the top 10. Now, stage 3 began, and Kyle Larson, again, exactly kind of like what happened in stage number 2. Since he stayed out to win the stage, he would start stage 3 mid-pack, also with Martin Truex Jr. Chase Elliott will end up taking the lead, entering turn 11 halfway in the race. In the meantime, while Chase Elliott is out in front trying to build a lead, you had Larson and Truex, who were in the middle of the pack and were quickly moving their way up towards the field, which provided a lot of good battles and some hair-raising moments between Truex and I think other cars like Chris Buescher, I think, had a bit of made some contact. There was a lot of good racing mid-pack, not so much up front, but mid-pack, especially seeing, it was very cool to see and interesting to see how Truex and Larson, who clearly had faster cars, were going to maneuver their way towards the field without hopefully not suffering any damage, because there was a lot of drivers in the middle of the pack that suffered a lot of damage, either due to stack ups or getting turned. It was, again, for a Sonoma race with a Gen 6 car, it was a lot more chaotic than I thought it would be. So after some time has passed, Larson would end up moving his way up towards the front and would end up catching Chase Elliott. When he caught Chase Elliott, it did take him a bit to actually pass him. There was a good battle between the two teammates. I don't think Hendrick enjoyed that, but as a fan, it was kind of surprising. Again, for a race like Sonoma, it was really surprising to see how good the battles were. And I think it probably has to do with the high horsepower, low downforce. I don't know what, but it was really cool seeing Larson and Elliott battle each other. Not hard, not aggressive, but still, it was a really good battle. But with Larson having fresher tires, he would eventually get by Chase Elliott right before the S's. But then a very interesting call or strategy option by the 9 team. So Larson ends up taking the lead from Elliott. Truex then takes over. Elliott is continually losing ground lap by lap. He's on older tires. He has to pit soon. And it was risky because you don't want to stay out so long, especially when you're out of sequence compared to the leaders, because if you go back so far enough, you might get screwed out of a potential win if a caution comes out or anything like that. But luckily, things actually kind of played out in Elliott's hands. Finally, with 29 laps to go, he gives up third place and pits. 1 lap later, Truex pits while Larson stays out. 1 lap later, though, Larson pits. But due to Larson staying out 1 lap later on those old tires, Truex is able to get by Larson after pit stops. But not by much, maybe 3 or 4 tenths Truex is ahead, and they are surrounded by lap traffic. Meanwhile, Chase Elliott actually benefited a lot from making that pit stop. Before he pitted with 29 laps to go, he was 8 seconds behind. After that, he was only 2.5 seconds behind. Now, on lap 67, Larson very aggressively got by Truex, but many people thought, including myself, thought, is Larson clearly faster, or is Truex potentially saving his tires? And we might see a repeat of Atlanta this year when Larson had a faster car, but used up his tires a lot more, while Blaney was more conservative and was able to chase down Larson on that final run with just under a few laps to go. Many people thought, including myself, that that's what Truex is trying to do. Then with 22 to go, after pit stops, Larson would become the race leader. But then to Larson's, I guess you could say luckily for Larson, 19 laps ago, a caution comes out. Quinn Houff expires an engine around the carousel and stops on the racetrack. That brings out a caution. Now this is a tough break, but Brad Keselowski, because 1 or 2 laps prior to that caution, Keselowski pitted. And originally, Keselowski was going to inherit the race lead. Unfortunately, he suffered a penalty by having his men jump over the wall too soon. Top 4 stayed out, and that was Logano, Reddick, LaJoie, and Alfredo. The rest behind them, they all pitted. Now, this was because the top 4, they pitted a lot later than everyone else. So, of course, they had to stay out if they want to get any form of track position. Now, Larson, because he was more up front, he was able to take the lead very quickly with just 15 to go. Truex, on the other hand, was a bit farther back and was surrounded by lap traffic. He was getting beaten around from all sides of his car, from the sides, from the back, and from the front, and was stuck in 5th place. He would eventually move his way up, but it took him a lot longer to get clear of all the chaos, longer than he wanted to. Then a caution will come out later in turn 11. So Corey LaJoie, Ross Chastain is on fresher tires, makes a move underneath Corey LaJoie. LaJoie shuts the door on him. LaJoie spins. That creates a stack up involving Kevin Harvick, William Byron, and Alex Bowman, and I believe a few more other drivers were involved to bring out another caution once again. And this would set up a lot of cautions. Restart with Logano and Larson with 11 laps to go. And then a caution comes out again with 5 to go. DiBenedetto gets into Ryan Preece, spinning him, and then Cody Ware runs right into the back of him and then dumps Ryan Preece in the process. And he dumped him. It looked like he straight up turned him based on how the car jerked back to the right. It looked like his intention was to spin out Ryan Preece. Then we restart with 2 laps to go. And then another caution, a stack up right before we get into the infield of Sonoma. A stack up happened, which caused Anthony Alfredo to spin. I think also Christopher Bell spun. But that will end up being the final caution. We then got into NASCAR overtime. You had Larson, Truex, and Elliott once again 1, 2, and 3. So many of us thought, okay, we might see like a good battle between Larson and Elliott. We saw a little bit of that up until we got into the S's. By that time, Larson was gone. Elliott tried, but he was no match for the number 5 team and Kyle Larson. Larson go on to win for the 4th time. Actually, I think the 3rd or 4th time in 2021. His 9th career Cup Series win and Hendrick Motorsports' 270th career win and his first win on a road course. And this is a cool stat that that Mike Joy brought up. Hendrick Motorsports ties a NASCAR record for most consecutive 1-2 finishes by a single team. That dates all the way back to, and I could be mistaken about this, since 1959. I mean, I have never seen Hendrick Motorsports this dominating. Even back in the day, in 2014 when they had Johnson, Gordon, Jr., and Casey Kane. They weren't that dominating. They weren't that all that. They had good success, but not to the level of today's drivers. I mean, you have Larson, who seems unstoppable. William Byron, aside from this race, extremely consistent. Chase Elliott, also very solid season, running up inside the top 5. Alex Bowman, could use some work, but still, this team are breaking records like nothing. Most consecutive 1-2 finishes. The fact that it's now almost a possibility where we could see a Hendrick 1-2-3-4 finish almost every other week. The fact that that's even a possibility is insane. None of us ever thought of that, especially by how abysmal HMS were. Not even, 1 or 2 years ago? I mean, 1 or 2 years ago, we were lucky to see them even win a race. Now, they're winning everything. It's really crazy to see how much a year can change. But yeah, let's take a look at the official results. So, once again, 1-2 finish. Larson and Elliott. Truex comes up in 3rd. Joe Legato in 4th. The Busch brothers, Kyle and Kurt, 5th and 6th. Ross Chastain, how about this for CGR? Last weekend, in the Coke 600, they finished, I think, dead last. I think it was 38th and 39th. And now, 1 week later, 6th and 7th. What a turnaround for CGR Racing. Very happy to see them get some success under their belts on what has been a very tough season for both of the drivers. 8th, Denny Hamlin. 9th, Alex Bowman. So even with all that contact, Bowman somehow managed to salvage a top 10 finish, and Ryan Blaney in 10th place. Eric Jones, a quiet 11th place run for him. Daniel Suarez in 12th. How about Austin Dillon? Austin Dillon had multiple battery changes during the race. For a 13th place finish with what they've been through that day, I'd say it's not too bad. Bubba Wallace, also 14th place finish. For the day they had, let's just say they got a good run. They cut down a tire, I think, near the end of stage number 2 and got caught up, got stuck 1 or 2 laps down for majority of the race. Was able to get some lucky breaks with those cautions near the end and able to salvage a 15th place finish with MJ being at the racetrack. I think that's the second time Michael Jordan was seen at a racetrack outside the Daytona 500. But yeah, again, not the day they wanted, but for what they got, they made the most of it. 15th place is Brad Keselowski. 16th, Chris Buescher. Chase Briscoe, 17th. Corey LaJoie, 18th. Reddick and Custer round out the top 20. Then you have Priest, Kevin Harvick, 22nd. DiBenedetto, 23rd. Bell had issues very early. I think at lap 4, he reported no fuel pressure and was caught multiple laps down. Was never able to... Actually, I don't think he was caught multiple laps down, but let's just say he also had a very eventful day. James Davison, how about that? 25th place. Nice run for him. Scott Hecker, 26th. Eric Almirola, 27th. Here's the thing with Almirola. Almirola had a good car. I mean, he had some moments. He had some speed under that 10 machine. He was shown a lot of times either inside the top 10 or just outside the top 10 for some portions of the race, which sucks, man, because that team needs something. They need something to go their way. 28th, McDowell. 29th and 30th. Ben Rose making his first Cup Series start, finishes in 30th. Anthony Alfredo, 31st. And then you see some other notables. Ryan Newman, 33rd. William Byron, 35th, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr., 37th. Not only did he hit the wall, later on his engine expired and he took it to the garage. So let's take a look now at the playoff format with 10 races to go until the NASCAR playoffs. And honestly, not much has changed. The only thing that has changed is that there is a 3 now next to Larson's name on the wins column and more playoff points for the number 5 team, 26. Denny Hamlin, the points leader, plus 333. Harvick, plus 152. Dillon, 105. Reddick, 67. Chris Buescher now jumping up to 60 points ahead of Matt DiBenedetto. And then you see Ross Chastain, once again, back inside the top 20, 84 points behind. So, my thoughts on this race. Honestly, again, like I said, for a Sonoma race in the Gen 6 car, a lot better than I expected, especially mid-pack. I want to say stage 1 was nothing really happened, and I feel like it was just more of teams testing the waters. Stage 2 on, a lot of good racing, especially mid-pack. There was a lot of being and banging, a lot of bumping and running. It was some good racing, in my opinion. I thought we saw some really good racing. For the standards that Sonoma is at, I thought it was pretty good. Also enjoyed the strategy a lot, especially, between Larson and Truex. Almost every driver I felt like was on a different strategy, which made things very interesting. I do have 2 complaints. Number 1, if we're gonna have stage racing, for the love of God, can we please get rid of the cautions, especially on road courses? In my opinion, they just screw up the whole flow of road course racing. I think it's awesome, and I love it, the unpredictable factor of road course racing, when pit crews have to really guess on when is the right time to make their pit stop. I don't like it when you have predetermined cautions and you can make your pit stop cycle around those cautions. I like for it to be unpredictable. You can't really, have a definite, okay, we're going to pit on this lap. You sort of have to guess as you go. So I would much rather prefer, if you're going to have stage racing, fine, but get rid of the stage cautions, not only on the road courses, but on all tracks, especially the road courses. And number two, I am so glad we're done with Fox after next week. They missed number one, they missed a lot of stuff in terms of battling. Like there are a lot of times where we would see a good battle, and then they would cut either to a drum can footage, which had some really fun shots this race, but they would cut to a drone can footage that shows nothing, or they'll cut to an onboard camera that also shows nothing. They missed a lot of stuff. Again, per Fox as usual, would cut to commercials a lot. It was just, it's Fox. What do you expect? Especially when you compare to how professional and how entertaining the broadcast was from the F1 race earlier today at Baku, and then you compare that to how Fox covered the race in Sonoma, it's day and night. So, yeah. NBC, I feel like they're going to do better, but let's just say broadcasting is pretty low. It's pretty low. So, yeah, those are really only two complaints. A lot of zoom-in shots. Let's just say this. The race could have been a lot better, in my opinion, as a fan's perspective, had Fox done a better job at covering the race. Because there's a lot of times where a race can be good, but it's produced so horribly that you leave thinking, oh, this race was crap, And I think today was one of those races. It wasn't the best Sonoma race by any means, but I think it was a solid maybe 7.5. I'll say 7 out of 10, because stage 1, nothing happened. But again, for a Sonoma race, I was quite surprised. But why I'm not surprised, actually, what I am surprised is also by HMS. Again, for them to be 4 in a row, they finished 1-2. And they've done it on a mile and a half. They've done it on a 1 mile concrete, and they've done it on a road course. It's not like they're dominant on a certain type of track. They're dominant everywhere they touch. And that is scary for the competition. And that's going to be very interesting to see how these next 10 races play out, and especially how the playoffs play out with HMS. Are all 4 of them going to be dominant? Or are we going to start seeing, maybe only 1 or 2 drivers rise to the occasion, like a Larson or an Elliott, which I see those 2 drivers being the top dogs at HMS. Or could another driver step up? Truex at JGR, he stepped up to the plate to try and challenge Hendrick, just like Kyle Busch did last weekend at Charlotte. Next weekend is a break at Texas, and I think the week after that is a points pay race at Nashville. Got a lot of new, interesting storylines and tracks coming up as we make our way towards the NASCAR playoffs in September. But that is going to conclude this episode of MDK Racing Victory Stop. Guys, tell me in the comment section down below, what are your thoughts on this race? Did you like it? Did you not? But until next time, my name is Jett from MDK, and I'll see y'all next time.